Welcome to Knowing Your Aircraft Part 2. This is going to be a shorter video because it's the last in the series, and it's going to have you well on your way from going from the street to the seat, making that first solo flight. So let's hop right in. What we're going to cover in this video is going to be the oil system, the brake system, the coolant system, and the BPRS. For those of you who don't know what that stands for Ballistic Rescue Parachute System. Apologize. Ballistic Parachute Rescue System, BPRS. So let's start with the oil system. It holds 3 quarts. There is an oil reservoir off to the side of the engine that you can see when you open up the oil check door, which is the door on the side of the cowling. It's going to be on the right side of the cowling. And when you open it up, you take off the oil reservoir top. We pull out the dipstick, and the dipstick has 2 indents on it, and we want to make sure that the oil is in between those 2 notches. Otherwise, if it's below, we're low on oil. If it's above, we're high on oil. Neither one's ideal, but low is definitely worse than high. The oil goes to 2 parts of the engine. It goes to the gearbox, and it goes to the engine itself. So lubricating the pistons as they're moving up and down in the cylinders. The oil system also has basically a radiator on it to radiate the heat that it moves through. That can be found on the bottom part of the engine. If you go look at the Pipistrel Alpha straight on, you will see a top and a bottom. Each one looks like it has a radiator. The top one is for the coolant system. The bottom one is for the oil system. Sometimes you will see some aluminum tape on the system. You might be wondering to yourself, what is that for? Well, that is for in the winter when we can't get the oil temperature high enough that it needs to burn off the contaminants. We will add some of that to the radiator in order to keep the oil a little bit warmer than it normally would be. So next, we've got the braking system. The kind of brake fluid that we use is DOT4 brake fluid, which is actually a clear brake fluid, as opposed to a lot of aircrafts which use a red brake fluid. The brake system in a few of our planes is going to be the handbrake system. This handbrake system is as drawn here. You pull the handbrake, which is attached to the master cylinder and the fluid reservoir. So as you pull that handbrake, it pulls back on, it pushes into the master cylinder, which pushes fluid through the brake lines into the caliper, and the caliper has 2 round pistons on it which push the brake pads in to the disc, and then the disc slows down the wheel. And that is how our brake system works, and it is one of the only hydraulic systems, well, on this aircraft, the only hydraulic system on the aircraft. So know that, because DPs like to ask about the hydraulic systems. Coolant. So our coolant system, if you open up that oil check door that we were just talking about, you'll see a container. It's a squared off container that has a reddish, pinkish fluid in it. That's going to be your coolant. We use Prestone DexCool 5050. That has worked out well for us. It's what's always been ran through that coolant system. Came from the manufacturer that way. It's that red pinkish color. It'll help you identify if you have a leak. So if you see pink leaking onto the aircraft, you have a good idea that there's probably some kind of coolant leak, which would also be indicated by the aircraft running hotter than it normally would. Like I said, the radiator for the coolant system is going to be the upper one when you're looking at the cowling. It's going to be the one on the top side, and that runs to all 4 cylinders, which have temperature sensors in them, and the coolant runs through the cylinders to keep the engine temperature down. The last one that I want to touch on is this BPRS. As I just said incorrectly earlier, it's the Ballistic Parachute Rescue System. We get ours through GRS, which is Galaxy Rescue Systems, as opposed to the American one, which you find on the Cirruses. Ours is from the European system, as the plane is made in Europe, so that would make sense. We have a rule that you are not to pull it above 330 feet AGL. It is 200 feet AGL in the POH for the Ballistic Rescue Parachute System. But for our purposes, we want to create even more of a buffer. We don't want you pulling that unless you're 330 feet above the ground. This parachute does need to be inspected every 10 years, and there are a lot of processes that it must go through to make sure that it is able to stay current and not going to get twisted up or cause any problems. It's also ballistic, so it actually has a rocket in it which shoots off the parachute, which is safer for us, but also creates some headaches around movement of the parachute. But that pretty much wraps up everything we need to know about the aircraft. There are a few things here and there that we'll talk about once you're in the plane that we didn't really cover in these videos. But that concludes our Seat to Street video series. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.